This is YNS, the YouTube News Service.
The US appears to be heading over the fiscal cliff with prospects dim for a deal to avoid tax rises and spending cuts. Speaking on the Senate floor, Democrat Harry Reid said there did not seem to be enough time to craft a deal before Monday night's end-of-year deadline. The President and Senate are back at work, with the House called back for Sunday, one day before the deadline. Analysts say heading over the cliff could tip the US into recession. What else is new? President Barack Obama is reported to have spoken to congressional leaders by phone on Wednesday for an update on the progress of talks. House Majority Leader Eric Cantor said the House might remain in session from Sunday evening until the 2nd of January, but gave no details of planned votes. The new 113th Congress, reflecting the results of November's elections, is scheduled to convene on the 3rd of January. Bickering over the cliff has divided Washington in recent weeks, with President Obama and House Speaker John Boehner unable to reach a deal before Christmas. The President wants to ensure that taxes do not rise for Americans earning under $400,000, whatever, and insists on raising new tax revenue in any deal. But many Republicans oppose new taxes, and an alternative plan proposed by Mr. Boehner, which would have seen taxes rise only on those earning over $1 million, failed in the House late last week. Republicans left Washington for Christmas and said responsibility for avoiding the cliff rested with the Democratic-led Senate. But in the Senate chamber on Thursday, Mr. Reid said the requirement to get at least 60 out of 100 votes to move for a vote on any legislation almost certainly doomed any new plan unless Republicans gave it strong backing. So yeah, I have no idea what a fiscal cliff is, but yeah. In other news, the American soul singer Fontella Bass, best remembered for the hit single Rescue Me, has died of complications following a heart attack. She was 72. She had been in poor health for much of the past 7 years. Rescue Me reached the top of the US R&B chart in 1965 and is one of the best-known soul songs. It has been covered by many artists. Fontella Bass has a powerful voice and a background steeped in music. Her mother was gospel singer Martha Bass, one of the Clairward singers, and Fontella Bass began performing at a young age, singing in a church's choir at the age of 6. Like many of her generation, she graduated to soul and R&B in the 60s, singing to chess records. She first found success in a duet with Bobby McClure on Don't Mess Up a Good Thing and You'll Miss Me When I'm Gone. She co-wrote Rescue Me, a song her daughter Nuka Mitchell said held a special part in her heart. But it took years of legal battles for her to receive full royalty rights to the song. A final settlement was reached more than 20 years after the song was first released. Ms. Mitchell said her mother was an outgoing person. She had a very big personality. Any room she entered, she just lit the room up, whether she was on stage or just going out to eat. Fontella Bass was married to the great jazz trumpeter Lester Bowie, who was a musical director. She died in the city where she was born, St. Louis, Missouri. Doesn't say exactly what she died of, it's just complications following a heart attack. Quite sure Rescue Me is the one that goes, Rescue me! Take me in your arms, rescue me! Syrian rebels sidetracked by scramble for spoils of war. Looting, feuds, and divided loyalties threaten to destroy unity of fighters as war enters new phase. It wasn't the government that killed the Syrian rebel commander Abu Jamil, it was the fight for his loot. The motive for his murder lay in a great warehouse in Aleppo, which his unit had captured a week before. The building had been full of rolled steel, which was seized by the fighters as spoils of war. But squabbling developed over who would take the greatest share of the loot, and a feud developed between commanders. Threats and counter-threats ensued over the following days. Abu Jamil survived one assassination attempt when his car was fired on. A few days later, his enemies attacked again, and this time they were successful. His bullet-ridden middle body was found, handcuffed, in an alley in the town of Al-Bab. Captain Hussam of the Aleppo Military Council said, "If he had died fighting, I would say it was fine. He was a rebel and a mujahid, and this is what he has set out to do. But to be killed because of a feud over loot is a disaster for the revolution. It is extremely sad that there is not one government institution or warehouse left standing in Aleppo. Everything has been looted. Everything is gone." Captured government vehicles and weapons have been crucial for the rebels since the start of the conflict, but according to Hussam and other commanders, and fighters interviewed by The Guardian over a fortnight in northern Syria, a new phase has been reached in the war. Looting has become a way of life. Spoils have now become the main drive for many units, as battalion commanders seek to increase their power. The problem is particularly pronounced in Aleppo, according to Abu Ismail, a young lieutenant from a wealthy family, who ran a successful business before joining the fight against Bashar al-Assad. I was saying that when you're pissed. Many of the battalions that entered the city in the summer of this year came from the countryside, he said. They were poor peasants who carried with them centuries-old grudges towards the wealthier Aleppans. There was also a lingering feeling that the city, where businesses had been exploiting cheap peasant labour for several decades, had not risen up critically enough against the Assads. The rebels wanted to take revenge on the people of Aleppo because they felt that we had betrayed them. But they forgot that most of the people of Aleppo are merchants and traders, and a merchant will pay money to get rid of his problem. Abu Ismail said, "Even as the rest of Syria was gripped by revolution, the Aleppans said, why should we destroy our businesses and waste our money?" Ow. Okay. Legislators propose amendment that would force the National Security Agency to reveal how many US citizens it has spied on. A small group of Democratic legislators fought on the Senate floor on Thursday to shed a sliver of light on the government's domestic surveillance program, seeking to force the NSA to estimate how many US citizens it has spied on. "I believe that the Senate cannot say that we passed a small test with respect to vigorous oversight if we don't have some sense of how many Americans are being swept up under the legislation," Ron Wyden of Oregon said in a debate. "Oversight will really be toothless without this kind of information." And I don't know why I gave him a low voice. The Senate debate came ahead of a vote on reauthorization of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, a 1978 law permitting the government to eavesdrop on correspondence between the United States and foreign addresses. The House of Representatives has already passed a 5-year extension to the law, and senators are likely to renew it by a wide margin. But critics of the law said it gives the government pretext for eavesdropping on anyone at any time. Wyden's amendment would require the NSA to put a number on how many Americans have been affected. His Oregon colleague Jeff Merkley proposed an amendment that would require the secret court that reviews surveillance requests known as the FISA Court, to inform the public when it makes important rulings of law. Intelligence officials have rejected all previous requests for such information. Wyden said, "The response was, it is not reasonably possible to identify the number of people located in the United States whose communications may have been reviewed under the authority of the FISA Amendments Act." Republican Senator Rand Paul, from the Libertarian wing of his party, has also proposed an amendment that would require a warrant to be issued before government officials could obtain details held by a third party, such as a cloud email provider. But Dianne Feinstein of California, or Feinstein, is she Jewish? Feinstein, maybe, the outgoing chairwoman of the Intelligence Committee, argued against the amendments, saying the surveillance programs mostly track foreign nationals. "No one should think the targets are US persons," Feinstein said. 13 members of the Intelligence Committee who have voted on this do not believe this is a problem. Every day, the National Security Agency intercepts and stores 1.7 billion emails, phone calls, and other types of communications. The Washington Post reported in 2010, NSA whistleblower Bill Binney has estimated that the agency has assembled 20 trillion transactions between US citizens.